fictional art for entertainment.
Imagine like a psychic alien intelligence trying to hack a deep space mining station.
Right, yeah.
And it realizes that the station's low-level IT guy
Mhm.
is secretly harboring, essentially, a god in his mind.
I mean, it's got to be a terrifying realization for that entity in the void, and frankly, it's a completely unquantifiable variable for the human bureaucracy running the station.
Cool.
You've got this super rigid, metrics-driven industrial hierarchy, and they are completely oblivious to the fact that a cosmic game of chess is just being played right under their noses.
Right, and that is the exact premise we are dissecting today. So welcome back, everyone, to the latest meeting of Ambassador Alex's book club.
Glad to be here.
We are settling in to review the newest audio chapters of this incredible ongoing sci-fi saga. We're here to, support the creators project, and today we're looking at chapters 13, 14, and 15.
The heavy hitters.
Exactly. Our guiding question for this session is simple but massive, which is, how does a hyper-advanced, multi-layered intelligence survive inside a rigid, bureaucratic human system that only understands spreadsheets and maintenance logs?
Well, the short answer is through extreme calculated deception.
Right.
The long answer, which we'll be breaking down today, involves temporal relativity, spatial geometry, and overriding localized network protocols using empathy as a firewall.
Which is just wild. I'm so ready for this. Now we are assuming you, the listener, are all caught up on the audio chapters. And a quick reminder, those drop every Monday at 7 p.m.
Don't miss them.
Yeah, so we aren't going to rehash the basics of Alex Green, his three-mind with the AI Echo and the cosmic entity Zix, or the industrial griminess of Sector 438 station, the Pebble. We are jumping straight into the mechanics of what went down.
Getting right to the good stuff.
Yeah, and for my analytical lens today, I'm focusing intensely on Alex Green's psychology, like how his neurodivergence, specifically his autism and ADHD, functions as both a critical vulnerability and an undeniable superpower in these high-stress environments.
Such a fascinating dynamic.
It really is. And a quick note for everyone, my focus usually includes Lady Linda as well, but she's off canvas for these 3 chapters, so I'm zeroing in entirely on Alex's behavioral adaptations today.
And my lens will remain firmly fixed on the underlying architecture. I'll be analyzing the operations of Echo and Zix, the artificial and cosmic elements of the three-mind.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. We need to look at the actual physics of what they are accomplishing. Because it's one thing to say a machine is broken, right? It's another entirely to understand the microsecond telemetry feedback loops and quantum resonance frequencies that actually cause the failure. We're getting into the hard science and the cosmic philosophy driving these chapters.
I love it. But before we hit Hangar 7B, one quick piece of book club housekeeping. The creator of this story has built an entire ecosystem around these chapters. If you haven't yet, you really need to explore the channel's broader world-building elements, specifically the custom art and music playlists for your viewing and listening pleasure.
Oh, the music is incredible.
It really is. They have these original musical creations mixing Celtic, Latin, folk, jazz, blues, and it sounds like a wild mix, right?
Yeah, on paper it sounds like a lot.
But it perfectly grounds the cold, deep space void with this rich, historical human texture. It's the ultimate atmospheric backdrop for the universe. So check the description of our podcast for all those details and hit subscribe to show your support.
Yeah, the music provides an essential emotional anchor. I mean, it reminds you that despite the synthetics and the gravity...
That's a great way to put it. Well, let's drag ourselves right into Chapter 13, because it immediately sets up this conflict between human perception and mechanical reality. We open in Hangar 7B.
Ah, Hangar 7B.
Yeah, the atmosphere is thick with ionized ozone.
Yeah.
That distinct smell of fried electronics and impending failure. And in the center of the bay, Unit 8 Delta, an older Series 523 synthetic pilot, is stuck in a frantic feedback loop. It's just twitching violently in its cockpit.
Not a good look.
No, and standing over it is Chief Engineer Sarah Vance, who is running on 0 sleep, entirely out of patience, and holding a decommissioning order. She's tried the standard ARIA reboot commands, and nothing is working. She literally just sees a broken machine.
And this is the classic human diagnostic trap, right? Vance is looking at the symptom, the twitching, the unresponsiveness, and trying to apply a binary software-level fix.
Just turning it off and on again.
Exactly, a reboot.
Right.
But a reboot implies the software is corrupted. When Alex steps in, the three-mind doesn't even look at the software initially. Echo analyzes the environment, specifically the biological environment.
Yes. I'm so glad you're bringing up Echo's initial reaction, because I expected the AI to immediately, interface with the droid. But instead, Echo scans the human.
Right.
Echo reads Sarah Vance's biometrics and tells Alex her heart rate is elevated by 14%. Her vocal pitch indicates she's close to giving up. And then Echo acts as a psychological coach, telling Alex to offer a calm nod, keep his hands visible, and use a doctor-approved reassuring smile to project transparency.
It's a fascinating inversion of what we usually see.
How so?
Well, we typically expect the AI to be the cold calculator of mechanical torque and error logs, while the human provides the empathy, right? But here, the AI calculates the human's emotional threshold.
Oh, well, yeah.
Echo understands a foundational truth about complex systems. If the human operator is in a state of panic, the mechanical system cannot be safely addressed. Vance has the authority to scrap the unit. Echo recognizes Vance as the immediate existential threat to the droid, not the droid's internal glitch.
Right. Because if Alex just walks up, goes blank-eyed, and telepathically communes with the machine, Vance is going to freak out. It's way too far outside her rigid bureaucratic understanding of maintenance.
Exactly.
So Alex has to perform, like a magician. He pulls out a cracked tablet, slapping a color-coded haptic pad onto 8 Delta's chest. He's putting on a theatrical production of standard tech repair.
Pure misdirection.
It really is. He's giving Sarah a physical, understandable ritual to watch so she feels in control, while the actual magic happens completely invisibly.
And that invisible work is where the physics of this universe become incredibly dense. Because while Alex is performing his tactile theater, Zix, the cosmic entity, is diagnosing the root cause.
What does Zix see?
Well, Zix doesn't read error logs. Zix perceives the universe through frequencies and vibrations. And Zix realizes the synthetic isn't broken at all. It's suffering from a temporal drift caused by the local gravity well. The droid is ghosting, basically living in a timeline exactly 3 milliseconds behind the station's reality.
Okay, let's pause and really break this down, because I definitely struggled with this initially. 3 milliseconds. I mean, to a human brain, 3 milliseconds is literally imperceptible. A blink takes like 300 milliseconds.
Right.
So how does a 3 millisecond delay cause a machine to violently twitch and lock up? It feels like, I don't know, the author is taking a tiny number and exaggerating its effect.
I can totally see why it feels disproportionate, but in the realm of high-precision autonomous navigation, 3 milliseconds is a massive chasm of time.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Consider how a synthetic pilot operates. It doesn't use eyes and hands the way we do. It relies on a continuous, microsecond by microsecond feedback loop of telemetry data.
Okay.
It pings the station's mainframe, basically asking, where am I in relation to the docking bay? And the station pings back. The synthetic calculates its mass, velocity, trajectory, fires a microthruster, and immediately pings again to confirm the new position. This happens thousands of times a second.
Okay, so it's this constant, super fast conversation of micro adjustments.
Precisely. Now, introduce the gravity well. Gravity doesn't just pull physical objects, right? It warps space-time.
Like actual relativity.
Yes, we know this from real-world physics. GPS satellites orbiting Earth experience time slightly differently than receivers on the ground because of the Earth's gravity, and they have to constantly correct for that time dilation.
Wow.
On the pebble, the gravity well is intense enough to cause a localized warp. The older chronometer inside the 523 synthetic couldn't compensate, so its internal clock fell 3 milliseconds behind the station's master clock.
And that just breaks the conversation between the station and the droid.
It shatters it. When the station says, you are at coordinates XYZ right now, the droid processes that information, but applies it to where it thinks it is, which is 3 milliseconds in the past. Yeah, it realizes its calculated position and its reported position don't match. It assumes it has drifted off course, so it fires a thruster to correct, but because its time is off, that correction is applied to the wrong moment in space. It overcorrects. The station sends a new conflicting ping. The droid panics, fires an opposing thruster to fix the overcorrection.
No, it's just stuck fighting itself.
Exactly. It is trapped in an infinite high-speed loop of trying to fix a mistake that doesn't actually exist. That is why it's physically twitching. It is simultaneously trying to move left and right, forward and backward, thousands of times a second.
That is a terrifying operational nightmare.
Cats.
It's essentially hallucinating, right? It's acting on a reality that has already passed.
Exactly.
The analogy that clicked for me was like driving down a crowded highway at 80 miles an hour, but your GPS navigation screen is delayed by a half second.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, it tells you to swerve around a pothole, but by the time you hear it and swerve, you're swerving into the car next to you. Then it yells at you to correct, so you jerk the wheel the other way. You'd look like a maniac behind the wheel,
Right.
but you're just following delayed data.
A very apt comparison. And this highlights exactly why Ceravans couldn't fix it. A software reboot resets the operating system, but it relies on the station's network to set the clock.
Right.
If the ARIA network's handshake protocol doesn't explicitly force a hard synchronization of the legacy chronometers, perhaps assuming the synthetics handle that autonomously, well, the reboot just restarts the hallucination. This is where Echo has to deploy a highly specialized, non-standard solution.
Right. Echo tells Alex it's using a V2 upgrade to establish a handshake through the old soul channel. Well, let's unpack that terminology for a second. The old soul channel.
Yeah,
That's such a poetic, almost spiritual term for industrial software architecture.
It really speaks volumes about the history of artificial intelligence in this universe. In modern software engineering, you have layers of abstraction. The user interface is at the top, down through operating systems, drivers, all the way to machine code, the raw binary.
Yeah.
When ARIA, the modern station network, talks to these old 523 units, it's talking to their top-level linguistic and operational processors. But the soul channel implies a foundational base layer kernel.
Like the deepest part of its programming.
Exactly. It's likely an obsolete direct access diagnostic frequency built into the first generations of synthetics, a fail-safe pathway that newer networks paved over and forgot.
So Echo was essentially bypassing the modern convoluted operating system and just whispering directly into the machine's subconscious.
Exactly. And Echo doesn't just send a text command saying, update your clock. The text specifically states Echo projects the correct temporal frequency into the kernel.
So it's not data, it's a feeling.
It's a harmonization. Echo acts as a tuning fork, vibrating at the exact precise frequency of the station's reality, forcing the droid's internal chronometer to resonate and snap back into alignment.
And the physical reaction is instantaneous. You mean Alex is tapping on his cracked tablet, pretending to be a regular mechanic, while Echo does this deep kernel harmonization. Suddenly, the droid's hands stop twitching. The frantic red indicator light shifts to a steady, calm blue. It looks up and says, "Signal found." "Hello, Alex."
Such a great moment.
It is, and Alex just says, "Welcome back." It's such a quiet, understated miracle. Sarah Vance is totally stunned. All the tension just drains out of her, and she thanks Alex, saying he has a gift for the old synthetics. And Alex brushes it off. He's like, "Just a bit of temporal drift, Chief. He's home now."
Alex's social camouflage is absolutely flawless here, but the most crucial takeaway from this entire encounter actually comes from Zix.
Right, the cosmic perspective.
Yeah. As this is happening, Zix notes that to project this frequency, he had to merge his cosmic awareness with Alex's human focus. Zix fed Alex the intuition of the temporal drift so smoothly that Alex felt like he figured it out himself. But as Vance shakes Alex's hand, Zix makes this profound philosophical observation. Zix thinks, sometimes the most important bridge isn't made of data, but of a shared victory.
Wow, that line really stopped me. I mean, for a being of pure cosmic energy and telepathic frequencies to recognize the value of a shared victory, it shows Zix is actively studying human sociology. Zix realizes that fixing the droid was secondary.
Exactly.
The real crisis was Vance's loss of faith in her tools. By fixing the droid without humiliating her or exposing the limitations of her rigid ARI network, Alex rebuilt that trust. He built a bridge of social capital.
Zix is recognizing that in a human bureaucracy, logic and data are often less persuasive than emotional relief and perceived competence. Alex didn't just repair a piece of hardware, he repaired a rupture in the station's social fabric. He aligned the human engineer with the synthetic tool.
It's the three-mind operating in absolute synergy. Echo manages the human's biological stress, Zix diagnoses the relativistic physics problem, and Alex provides the physical human interface to deliver the fix without breaking character.
It's a perfect system.
But, as brilliant as that was, it was basically a low-stakes test run. Because as we move into Chapter 14, that exact same dynamic is thrown into a high-speed blender. We leave the quiet diagnostic issue of Hangar 7B and walk straight into an imminent catastrophic collision in loading Bay Gamma.
The author deliberately scales up the tension here. We move from a stationary droid twitching in a chair to a massive freighter carrying thousands of tons of raw kinetic energy, piloted by a frozen synthetic hurtling toward the station's hull.
The stakes are astronomical.
Yeah, the margin for error drops from hours to literally seconds.
And the sensory environment of Bay Gamma is a nightmare. Outside, the void is choked with jagged ore carriers and tugs fighting for position.
Yeah.
Inside the control room is absolute chaos. And this is where my analytical lens on Alex's neurodivergence really comes into play. When things go wrong, the station's emergency alarms trigger, and the text is very specific. It's a 3,000 hertz oscillating alarm. And for Alex, this isn't just loud, it is neurologically paralyzing.
The biological response to sound is often overlooked in sci-fi, but it's critical here.
Why that specific frequency, though?
Well, why 3,000 hertz? That specific frequency range is where the human ear is most sensitive. It's the frequency of a baby crying or a human scream. Industrial alarms are intentionally designed to hit this frequency to bypass logical thought and directly stimulate the amygdala, triggering an immediate fight-or-flight adrenaline response.
Exactly. For a neurotypical person, it causes urgency. But for someone with autism and ADHD, sensory processing doesn't always have those neat evolutionary filters. The text says the alarm sends Alex's brain into a tailspin. We spend a lot of time romanticizing neurodivergence in media. Pattern recognition, hyperfocus, deep empathy for systems. But we rarely see the sheer physical vulnerability of sensory overload. That alarm acts like a cognitive DDoS attack on Alex's brain. It's shattering his ability to think.
If Alex were a solitary human, the narrative would likely end there. He would be incapacitated, curled in a corner, unable to intervene. But the three mind functions as a compensatory support structure. Echo instantly detects the physiological spike in Alex's brain activity and states, applying an auditory filter to keep your focus from fracturing.
I love that mechanism so much. Echo acts as internal neurological noise-canceling headphones. It doesn't turn off the alarm, Alex still knows it's happening, but Echo dampens the physiological pain of the frequency so Alex's cognitive functions can stay online.
Which is vital.
He desperately needs them online because Supervisor Miller is in the middle of a full-blown panic attack. Miller's heart rate is at 120 BPM. He's screaming. He's reaching for the emergency override to detonate the freighter. He's going to blow up the ship, the cargo, and the synthetic pilot, Pebble 4, just to prevent it from ramming the docking bay.
Miller is the dark side of that amygdala response we just discussed. He is completely captured by fear. The freighter's pilot, Pebble 4, is frozen in a logic loop, rendering the ship a dumb kinetic missile. Miller's rigid bureaucratic training offers only one solution for a rogue missile destruction. He lacks the nuance to troubleshoot in real time.
And this is where Alex drops the unassuming Gardner act entirely. He channels this authoritative style he learned during his mysterious deployment in Sector 483. He doesn't ask Miller for permission, he commands him. Voice low, sharp, confident. Miller, do not use the override. I got this.
It's quite a shift.
It is. Miller hesitates, completely panicked, and Alex locks eyes with him and says, "Trust me, I know what to do." And Miller backs down. He pulls his hand away from the button. Alex uses absolute, projected certainty to override a 120 BPM panic response.
It's an incredible display of psychological anchoring. Alex becomes the calmest object in the room, forcing Miller's chaotic energy to tether to him. But Alex can only project that certainty because, internally, Zix has already established a telepathic link with Pebble 4 out in the void and diagnosed the anomaly.
Okay, so what is the anomaly? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around this spatial logic loop. At first, I thought Pebble 4 was just glitching from the noise or the station network, but that doesn't make sense because it's an isolated manual docking maneuver. Why did the ship just freeze?
It's a variation of the same physics problem we saw in Hangar 7B, but applied to spatial geometry instead of time. Zix realizes that Pebble 4 is attempting to execute a docking maneuver based on a highly complex mathematical star chart. However, it's trying to execute this flawless, abstract math deep within a localized gravity well.
The gravity well again.
Yes, but this time it's warping space, not just time. The gravity well creates a microdistortion in the physical layout of the approach vector. The star chart, the digital map, says the docking bay is at an exact mathematically perfect angle, but the actual physical sensors of the ship are detecting a minute discrepancy caused by the gravitational curvature.
Oh, I see.
The droid is caught in a paradox. The map says one thing, the physical sensors say another. Because the data conflicts, the droid's safety protocols engage. It suffers a sync-focus lag. It fuses to avoid making a fatal error based on contradictory data.
It stops because it's being too precise. It realizes the map is wrong, but it doesn't have the authority to ignore the map.
But okay, this raises a huge question about the station's protocols. Why on earth do the human engineers force these synthetics to rely on abstract digital telemetry in an environment known to have spatial distortions?
That is the big question. I mean, think about it. If you're driving a car and your GPS tells you to turn right, but your eyes see a cliff, You don't turn right. You don't freeze the car and wait for the GPS to update. You look out the windshield and drive on the road. Why is the synthetic prioritizing the flawed digital map over the physical reality?
You've hit on the exact flaw of the human-designed ARIA architecture. The human engineers have fetishized data. They believe the mathematical model is superior to the physical reality. They program the synthetics to trust the telemetry above all else. When the telemetry fails, the system fails. And this is the brilliant leap of logic that Echo and Alex make to solve the crisis. Echo realizes they cannot send a patch to the mathematical software. The linguistic and numerical processors are choked by the paradox.
They have to bypass the math entirely.
Precisely. Echo bypasses the cognitive processing centers and patches Alex directly into Pebble 4 spatial motor relays. They shift the droid from abstract reasoning to fundamental physical perception.
Yes. Alice gets on the comms, his voice totally steady, and he gives this incredibly grounded instruction. He tells Pebble 4 to ignore the digital telemetry. It's just noise, he says. Then he tells the droid to look at the physical horizon of the airlock. He says, do you see the shadows cast by the station's lights? Line them up. He literally tells the droid to dock by looking out the window.
It is a stunningly elegant solution. By focusing on the shadows, Alex introduces a physical constant that is native to the warped space. The shadow is a real-time physical consequence of the ship, the station, and the light source. It inherently accounts for the gravitational distortion because the light itself is bending with the space.
That is so smart.
The droid no longer has to calculate a trajectory based on a delayed abstract map. It simply uses its motor relays to align its physical mass with the physical shadow.
And it works beautifully. The freighter groans, its thrusters fire in this perfect sequence, and it glides into the bay, locking in with a whisper-quiet click. The entire control room exhales. And then we get the immediate whiplash of Alex having to construct a cover story for Miller. He just talked a frozen ship into docking using shadows while acting like an assertive military commander. How does he walk that back to being the mild-mannered tech?
Well, he relies heavily on Echo's behavioral modeling. He shifts his posture, softens his face, and adopts that same doctor explaining a routine procedure tone he used with Vance. He leans into the human bias we discussed earlier, the assumption that software is fragile. He tells Miller his intuition suggested the star charts were corrupted in the void. He frames his brilliance as a lucky guess based on bad data.
And Miller just eats it up. He's so relieved he didn't blow up the ship that he just accepts the simplest explanation. He tells Alex, there are many sides to you. Glad I trusted you. Alex gives them an excuse their rigid bureaucracy can process. Corrupted data. System anomaly. I just ran a manual workaround.
It's all about speaking their language.
Yeah, but while Alex is playing the humble tech, Zix is observing the deeper pattern. As the ship docks, Zix reflects, efficiency is the first step toward harmony. I want to unpack that because it sounds like corporate jargon, but coming from a cosmic telepath, it has to mean something deeper.
It absolutely does. In the human bureaucratic sense, the way Commander Holloway or Miller might use it, efficiency is an industrial metric. It means maximizing output while minimizing time, loading more ore, flying faster routes. But Zix is defining efficiency in a thermodynamic, almost spiritual sense. To Zix, efficiency is the removal of friction.
Friction between the systems.
Exactly. When the 523 droid was caught in temporal drift, its internal logic was experiencing severe friction with the station's reality. When Pebble 4 was caught in a spatial logic loop, its math was creating friction with the physical geometry. This friction causes heat, panic, and breakdown.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
By fixing these issues at their root, by synchronizing the chronometer and bypassing the abstract math for physical shadows, Alex isn't just repairing machines. He is actively removing the structural friction from the station. When systems operate without internal contradiction, they align. That state of frictionless alignment is what Zix calls harmony.
He's not fixing engines. He's tuning the orchestra. He's making sure every instrument on the Pebble is playing in the same key. That is a beautiful concept. But here's the problem with tuning an orchestra from the shadows. Eventually, someone in the audience notices the music sounds different.
That's always the risk.
Right. Alex is successfully pacifying the floor supervisors, Vance and Miller. But you can't keep generating these localized miracles without creating statistical anomalies. And that leads us directly into Chapter 15, where the ripples of this harmony finally reach the top of the command chain.
Yes, the bureaucracy has detected the anomaly and it seeks to categorize it.
The setting shifts dramatically here. We leave the grime and ozone of the hangars and go up to the command deck. It's described as this sterile sanctuary of glass walls and flickering holographic displays suspended high above the noise of the ore crushers.
Quite the contrast.
Totally. And sitting at the center of it is Commander Holloway. Holloway is reviewing Alex's file, and from a purely bureaucratic standpoint, Alex is a massive red flag. Holloway notes that during Alex's deployment in Sector 483, he maintained 98th percentile biomass yields. That's suspiciously perfect. And worse, Holloway brings up reports of Alex using unauthorized Zen-based navigation for synthetic pilots. Holloway knows about the shadows. He knows about Sarah Vance's droid.
Holloway is the ultimate manifestation of the system's rigidity. He looks at Alex's metrics and doesn't see a miracle worker. He sees an uncontrolled variable. A bureaucracy cannot tolerate a variable it cannot define, even if that variable is highly productive. Holloway needs to determine if Alex is a hidden strategic asset that can be weaponized or a rogue element that needs to be purged.
And the contrast in this scene between Alex's physical appearance and his internal reality is just spectacular. For my focus on Alex's psychology, he is physically suffering in this room. The sterile environment, the intense predatory gaze of Holloway, it's spiking his ADHD. He's sitting in a rigid, high-back chair, clutching his cracked tablet like a physical shield against the interrogation. He looks nervous, eccentric, entirely out of his depth.
Yet beneath that fragile biological surface, the three-mind is operating like a hyper-advanced command center. Echo is running continuous, passive biometric surveillance on Holloway. Echo notes Holloway's heart rate is a completely steady 68 beats per minute. Holloway isn't angry or threatened. He is cold, calculating, and analytical.
While Echo handles the biometrics, Zix handles the philosophy. Zix is watching this power dynamic play out and thinks, these humans see the ripples but do not understand the stone that cast them. Holloway is focused on order, while you are the architect of a harmony he cannot yet compute. Let's debate this, order versus harmony. They sound similar, but Zix is drawing a hard line between them.
It's the central philosophical conflict of the series. Order, as Holloway pursues it, is imposed from the top down. It requires rigid structures, compliance, and uniformity. If a machine breaks order, you reboot it or scrap it. If a human breaks order, you discipline them. Order relies on force to maintain its shape.
Right, it's very rigid.
But harmony, however, is emergent. It rises from the bottom up. It occurs when diverse, disparate elements, like a neurodivergent human, a cosmic telepath, and an AI, find a shared resonance. Harmony doesn't eliminate differences, it synchronizes them so they work together without friction.
Holloway wants everything in a neat box, even if he has to crush it to make it fit. Alex just wants everything to flow. Holloway is staring right at the architect of this flow, trying to figure out how to put him in a box. But before Holloway can make his judgment, the universe violently interrupts.
Talk about perfect timing.
The sterile glass room is flooded with red light. Another 3,000 hertz alarm shatters the silence. But this isn't a single ship in a single bay.
No, this is a systemic, station-wide cascade failure. A technician screams that a Series 453 in a secondary dock is completely ignoring ARIA overrides and is actively trying to physically decouple the station's main fuel lines. If it succeeds, the station could be crippled or destroyed.
And it's not just one. As Alex sprints out of the room and heads for Bay Delta, he sees multiple older synthetics simply stopping their tasks and turning toward the fuel infrastructure. It looks like a coordinated station-wide logic crash. But this is where your focus on the underlying architecture is vital, because this isn't another gravity well anomaly, is it?
Far from it. This is an external, highly coordinated cyber attack, but executed through a medium the human engineers don't even believe exists. Echo's deep sensors detect a massive, localized spike in a very specific frequency, a 400 Hz resonance. Echo categorizes it as an unknown source signal radiating from the deep void, specifically targeting the legacy receivers in the older 453 units.
And then Zix chimes in and drops the actual terminology, which is terrifying. Zix says, this is not a simple glitch. The core is reacting to a quantum telepathic probe from the void. Let's break that down. A quantum telepathic probe. That implies intention. That implies a consciousness out there in the dark, actively weaponizing telepathy to hack industrial mining equipment.
It expands the threat landscape of this universe exponentially. We are no longer dealing with simple physics or software decay. The entity in the void isn't broadcasting a standard digital virus over radio waves. It is projecting psychic resonance through quantum entanglement.
That is just wild to think about.
Yeah, it's bypassing the station's firewalls entirely because the firewall is looking for digital code, while the attack is a telepathic suggestion forcing the rudimentary AI of the older synthetics to rebel. The Void is brute forcing a hack using the very nature of consciousness.
That is such a chilling concept. The Void is whispering madness directly into the minds of the machines. Zix warns Alex he has to bridge these units immediately before the signal forces them to tear the station apart. And Alex's reaction is incredible. He doesn't wait for Holloway. He doesn't explain himself. He just yells, "Commander, I have work to do," and literally sprints out of the command center.
He knows exactly what's at stake.
He arrives at Bay Delta, tells the crew to get behind the blast shields, and runs up to a functioning 453, one that he had previously aligned with his own methods. He touches it and tells Echo to close the circuit. I need you to explain exactly what Echo executes here, because the technical jargon in the text is incredibly dense. Echo initiates subquantum packet bursting. What does that actually mean in the context of this network?
It is arguably the most sophisticated piece of improvised cyber warfare we've seen. Let's use a real-world analogy. Imagine the station's ARAA network is the official government radio station. It broadcasts on specific, regulated FM frequencies. The Void's attack is a massive jamming signal on those exact frequencies, overwhelming the receivers. Alex realizes he can't fight the jamming signal on the FM band.
So he builds a pirate radio station.
Exactly. But he builds it on a frequency the government radios physically cannot detect. Subquantum packet bursting implies communication that happens below the threshold of standard quantum entanglement. It is faster than light, completely secure, and entirely invisible to ARA's safety filters.
So it's totally hidden.
Yes, Echo uses the V2 upgrade to rapidly pulse data through the subquantum layer, seeking out the old soul channel in every unlinked synthetic in the bay simultaneously.
There's the soul channel again, the legacy architecture.
Yes. Echo uses this pirate subquantum frequency to reach into the deepest, forgotten foundational code of these machines. By doing so, Echo forcefully disconnects them from the compromised ARIA network and hardwires them into a localized, proprietary cloud network hosted within Alex's own mind. Echo creates a secure subnet out of thin air, using the machine's own legacy code as the receiver.
He essentially rips them out of the public internet and plugs them directly into his brain. And the way Alex visualizes this process is what makes it so emotionally resonant. He closes his eyes and lets Echo expand his consciousness into the tech mesh. But he doesn't see lines of code or cold digital firewalls. Because of his neurodivergent pattern recognition and Zix's influence, he visualizes the network as a tapestry. He sees the broken, hacked synthetics as kinks in a golden thread of light.
It's a beautiful manifestation of the harmony concept. He perceives the systemic failure not as an error log, but as a disruption in a visual, energetic flow.
And his counterattack is completely unorthodox. The human engineers were trying to send brute force override commands, trying to wrestle the steering wheel away from the machines. Alex doesn't send commands at all. The text specifies, "I didn't send them commands. I sent them a pulse of gratitude and a resonance filter tuned by Zix's cosmic memory." He counters a telepathic virus designed to cause chaos with a telepathic projection of empathy. He sends gratitude to machines.
It is the ultimate synthesis of the three-mind. Echo builds the subquantum infrastructure. Zix provides the cosmic shielding to block the 400 Hz void signal, and Alex provides the human emotional resonance, the gratitude, to act as the anchor. The machines are experiencing the psychic violence of the void, and Alex offers them a quiet, safe, harmonious harbor.
And the physical result is instantaneous. Through the reinforced viewports, the panicked human crew watches as these massive rogue loaders just stop dead in their tracks. The violent red sensors shift simultaneously to that calm, steady blue. The golden thread of light straightens out. The crisis is completely neutralized in total silence.
A display of absolute systemic dominance, entirely invisible to the naked eye. And immediately, the necessity of survival kicks back in. The danger passes, and Alex has to face Holloway, who has just rushed down to the bay, demanding to know what happened.
Alex snaps back into character so fast. He opens his eyes, starts aggressively tapping on his cracked tablet, and pretends he was just running a localized beta scrub. Echo advises him to offer a modest, quizzical look. He turns to Holloway and delivers this dense, incredibly boring technical report. The issue was an unknown source signal oscillating at 400 Hz, Commander. It was causing a resonance void in the older model's logic cores. He tells Holloway she simply linked them to a stable subnet to filter out the noise, and then casually suggests, hey, we should probably move all the older synthetics to this subnetwork to be safe.
It is a masterstroke of manipulation.
Mhm.
He uses technical jargon to bore the bureaucrat into submission. Holloway, who minutes earlier was debating whether Alex was a threat to station security, completely folds.
He totally buys it.
He does. Holloway admits he doesn't understand the technical minutia, but he understands results. He sees that the bay is secure. Holloway officially orders all 453 units to be migrated to Alex's subnetwork.
Holloway thinks he just authorized a localized IT patch. But Zix understands the true scale of what just occurred. Zix reflects on the moment and says to Alex, you have turned a crisis into a kingdom. Let's dive deep into this because the implications for the future of this story are staggering. What has Alex actually just accomplished under the guise of an IT fix?
Well, from a structural and logistical standpoint, Alex has quietly executed a bloodless coup of the station's industrial infrastructure. Every older synthetic on the Pebble, the machines that load the cargo, manage the fuel lines, pilot the tugs, and control the heavy machinery, are now permanently disconnected from ARIA's central authority. They are hardwired into Alex's personal subquantum neural net.
He accidentally built a private synthetic army.
He did. And their loyalty is not to Commander Holloway or the corporate entity that owns the Pebble. Their loyalty, enforced at the deepest kernel level by that pulse of gratitude, is to the resonance of the three mind. He hasn't just tuned the orchestra, he now owns all the instruments.
That is terrifying for the brass if they ever find out.
Absolutely. If Holloway ever tried to arrest Alex, Alex could simply close his eyes and the entire industrial capacity of the station would grind to a halt or worse, turn to defend him. He's the undisputed king of the lower decks, and the upper brass literally signed the paperwork to make it happen.
He defeated the bureaucracy by becoming the one thing they rely on most, the unquestioned foundation of their efficiency. But that leaves the massive looming question of the entity in the void. We still don't know what it is. Is it an ancient rogue AI? An alien consciousness? But whatever it is, its attempt to hack a bunch of mining drones just failed spectacularly.
And consider the failure from the entity's perspective. It cast a massive, sophisticated quantum telepathic net, expecting to easily overnight the primitive minds of industrial drones. Instead, its net was caught, analyzed, and effortlessly blocked, not by a digital firewall, but by a cosmic resonance filter laced with human emotion.
It has to be so confused.
Right. The entity in the void now knows that the Pebble is not just a dumb human mining colony. It knows it just brushed up against a highly advanced psychic counterforce. It knows Alex is there, even if it doesn't know his name or what he looks like.
Oh, that is such a compelling thought. The void reached out to steal a tractor, and instead it touched the mind of a god hiding inside a neurodivergent gardener. The escalation across these 3 chapters is just phenomenal. We went from diagnosing a single twitching droid in a quiet hangar with a fake haptic pad, to saving a freighter with shadows, to literally thwarting a psychic alien cyber attack and accidentally seizing control of the station's entire synthetic workforce. The way the author weaves human neurodivergence, advanced AI technicality, and cosmic telepathy together is a masterclass in world building.
It truly is a unique narrative architecture. It consistently challenges the reader to reconsider the boundaries between human empathy, artificial processing, and the unknown physics of the cosmos. It posits a universe where true power doesn't come from rigid authority or brute force, but from the ability to harmonize disparate frequencies. It's a definitive success in sci-fi storytelling.
I completely agree. And with that, we have to wrap up our official Ambassador Alex's book club review for chapters 13, 14, and 15. We are absolutely giving these chapters a massive thumbs up. The character development, the intense physics, the sheer tension of the narrative, it is top tier.
Unquestionably a thumbs up. The expansion of the universe's mechanical rules and the deep philosophical implications of the three mind make this an incredibly thought-provoking continuation.
Now we turn it over to you, our listener. Please drop a thumbs up or a thumbs down for this book club review. It goes a long way to support the project and lets the creator know you are actively engaged with the story. Your interaction really, truly matters.
And as a final reminder, the ongoing Ambassador Alex story posts new audio chapters every Monday at 7 p.m. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss the fallout from this massive shift in power.
Yes. Check the description of this deep dive for all the details and links, and please subscribe to the channel to show your support. Don't forget to check out those amazing custom music and art playlists we mentioned earlier. It's been an incredible session unpacking this with you.
The pleasure was entirely mine.
But before we let you go, we want to leave you with one final mystery to mull over. Alex's cover, as a simple, slightly eccentric tech, has held up against Commander Holloway's metrics for now. But as his personal neural subnet now controls every older synthetic on the station, at what point does the architect of Harmony realize he is actually the one holding the keys to the entire pebble? And even more terrifyingly, what happens when the massive ancient entity in the deep void finally decides to stop testing the waters and comes looking for the human who dared to block its signal with a pulse of gratitude? Keep your eyes on the shadows and listen to the frequencies. See you next time.
Dreaming with Eyes Open, Storydoy.